When Jesus stood before the crowds and proclaimed, "I am the way, the truth, and the life," or when he boldly declared, "I am the resurrection," something extraordinary was happening beneath the surface of those words. Most people throughout history have interpreted these statements as claims of his unique divinity, as if he were saying something that applied only to him, the Son of God speaking from a place no ordinary human could ever reach. But what if we've been missing the entire point? What if Jesus wasn't separating himself from humanity, but rather showing us the doorway to our own divine nature? Have you ever wondered why Jesus chose those specific words when he declared his divine nature? Why not use elaborate theological explanations or complex spiritual formulas? What if I told you that hidden within the simplest declaration he ever made lies the master key to every miracle, every healing, and every transformation he performed, and that this same power is available to you, right now, in this very moment? Think about this for a moment. Has this ever happened to you? You've prayed earnestly, desperately even, for breakthrough in your life, perhaps for healing from an illness that won't release its grip, for financial provision that never seems to arrive, or for peace in relationships that remain broken. You've recited prayers, attended services, read scripture, followed spiritual practices with sincere devotion. Yet somehow, the transformation you long for remains just out of reach. The problems persist, the struggles continue, and deep down you begin to wonder if there's something you're fundamentally missing about how spiritual power actually works. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. Here's the truth that changes everything. Jesus wasn't making philosophical statements when he used the words, "I am." He was demonstrating a consciousness principle, a spiritual technology, if you will, that operates according to exact laws. Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover might surprise you. It certainly transformed everything I thought I knew about prayer, healing, and the nature of divine power. These two simple words, "I am," contain a secret that most people walk past their entire lives without recognizing, even though they use these words dozens of times every single day. Consider how casually we throw around this phrase. I am tired. I am worried. I am broke. I am sick. We think we're simply describing our current circumstances, making innocent observations about our temporary state. But what if every time you speak those words, you're actually engaging a creative force of unimaginable magnitude? What if "I am" isn't just a grammatical construction, but rather the most powerful declaration available to human consciousness? The very same consciousness that allowed Jesus to heal the sick, raise the dead, and transform physical reality itself. The mystery isn't in the words themselves, but in the consciousness behind them. And right now, you're about to discover why understanding this distinction could be the missing piece that finally unlocks the spiritual breakthrough you've been seeking. The fundamental problem with the way most of us have been taught to pray reveals a hidden truth that completely transforms our understanding of spiritual power. When you face a crisis, perhaps a medical diagnosis that shakes your world, bills piling up with no solution in sight, or a relationship crumbling despite your best efforts, what's your first instinct? You bow your head, close your eyes, and begin pleading with God. You ask for intervention, for help, for someone or something outside yourself to reach down and fix what's broken. This is the pattern we've inherited, the spiritual mindset passed down through generations. But here's the revelation that changes everything. This entire approach is built on a misconception that actually blocks the very transformation we're seeking. Think about what's happening in that moment of traditional prayer. You're positioning yourself as separate from the divine power you're calling upon. You're essentially saying, "I am here, small and powerless, and you are there, distant and mighty. Please bridge this enormous gap and solve my problem." Every word reinforces the belief in separation. Every plea confirms your sense of lack. The very act of begging implies you don't already possess what you need. This isn't just ineffective, it's actually reinforcing the consciousness of limitation that created the problem in the first place. Smith Wigglesworth discovered this profound truth through his own journey of spiritual awakening, and it revolutionized not just his understanding but his ability to demonstrate divine power in practical, tangible ways. Now here's where the real breakthrough happens, where everything you thought you knew gets turned completely upside down. When Jesus declared, "I am," he wasn't talking about his human body walking the dusty roads of Galilee. He wasn't referring to his personality, his history, or even his role as a teacher. He was making a declaration that transcended all physical identity. He was stating that the presence of God itself was his only true identity. Not that he had a connection to God, not that God was with him, but that the I speaking through him was divine consciousness itself, expressing in human form. This wasn't poetry or metaphor. This was a demonstrable principle that allowed him to command storms, heal diseases, and even restore life to the dead. The impact of understanding this cannot be overstated. Everything we've been taught positions God as external, out there somewhere, beyond us, above, us separate from our everyday experience. We spend our lives trying to reach God, to please God, to get God's attention. But what if that entire framework is backwards? What if the divine presence isn't something distant that you need to access, but rather the fundamental essence of what you already are? This single shift in consciousness changes your entire spiritual journey, from one of seeking to one of recognition, from begging to claiming, from hoping to knowing. Behind the scenes of Jesus' miracles was this exact understanding. He never prayed in the way we've been taught, as if asking permission from an external authority. He spoke as authority itself. I am the resurrection and the life. Not, I hope God will resurrect, or I'm asking God to bring life. He declared from the consciousness of being one with the source of all life and power. This is the hidden mechanism behind every supernatural demonstration recorded in Scripture, and it's available right now to anyone willing to make this radical shift in their understanding of identity. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by examining what happens when you begin to consciously use these two words in your daily life. If this is starting to resonate with something you've always sensed but couldn't quite articulate, write in the comments, "I am ready for this truth." What if everything you've been searching for has been closer than your own breath this entire time? The revolutionary discovery that shattered Smith Wigglesworth's entire spiritual framework was this: the divine presence you've been trying to reach, the power you've been hoping will intervene in your life, the source you've been begging for help. It's not distant at all. It's not watching from somewhere beyond the clouds. The eye that looks through your eyes right now. The consciousness reading these words. The awareness experiencing this moment. That is divine presence, expressing itself as your individual experience. Not a piece of God, not a connection to God, but the actual presence of God being you. This isn't some abstract philosophical concept that sounds nice, but has no practical application. This is the hidden truth that transforms everything when you truly grasp it. Your health, your relationships, your financial situation, your sense of purpose. Every area of your life shifts when you stop operating from the consciousness of separation and step into the recognition of your true identity. Smith Wigglesworth didn't just theorize about this. He lived it. He demonstrated it. And the impact of this understanding produced miracles that defied every natural law because he was no longer bound by the limitations of personal identity. He recognized that the I am speaking through him was the same infinite intelligence that created worlds. Here's where the journey gets really interesting, where everything starts to make sense in a completely different way. Every problem you're facing right now exists because of a case of mistaken identity. That illness you're battling, that lack you're experiencing, that fear that keeps you awake at night, none of these define who you truly are. They're not happening to the real you. They're appearing in your experience because you've temporarily forgotten your essential nature and identified with something false. You've been living as if you're just a body, just a personality, just a person trying to survive in a difficult world. But that's not the truth of your being. That's the costume, not the actor. That's the wave forgetting it's the ocean. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. I'm here sharing these deeper spiritual principles that actually transform your experience of reality. Think about the profound implications of this. If your problems exist because you've forgotten your true identity, then the solution isn't about changing circumstances at all. It's not about manipulating conditions or forcing outcomes or working harder to make things happen. The transformation happens the moment you remember who you are, not who you hope to become, not who you're trying to be, but who you've always been beneath the layers of false identification. This is why affirmations often fail, why positive thinking alone doesn't produce lasting change, why you can't just think your way into a better life. You're not trying to create a new identity. You're uncovering the one that's been there all along, buried under years of conditioning and misconception. The entire landscape of your reality shifts when you move from, I am a person seeking God's help, to I am the presence of God expressing in this form. Suddenly prayer becomes recognition rather than petition. Healing becomes remembering rather than achieving. Abundance becomes revealing rather than acquiring. You're not trying to get something from somewhere else anymore. You're allowing what's already present to become visible in your experience. This is the mindset shift that changes everything. Not gradual improvement through effort, but instant transformation through recognition. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by showing you exactly how this plays out in everyday language and why the words you speak after I am are literally creating your experience. If you're beginning to see how mistaken identity might be at the root of your struggles, drop in the comments. I'm ready to remember who I am. The most profound revelation in all of spiritual understanding is this. We've been living with a solution to a problem that never actually existed. For countless generations, religious tradition has painted a picture of God as distant, separate, somewhere beyond the reach of ordinary humans. We've built entire belief systems around bridging this supposed divide. We've created rituals, ceremonies, and practices all designed to help us connect with something we think is separate from us. We've spent lifetimes on a journey toward a destination that was never away from us in the first place. The gap we've been trying to cross was nothing more than a collective illusion, a mistaken perception that's been passed down so long we've accepted it as truth without question. Smith Wigglesworth's breakthrough came when he realized that every prayer asking God to come down or be with me was reinforcing the very separation that blocked divine power from flowing. The instant he understood that God isn't something external to connect with, but rather the fundamental I of his own being, everything changed. Not through years of gradual growth, but in a single moment of recognition. The foundation of his entire existence shifted from seeking connection to recognizing presence. This wasn't about believing something new. It was about seeing through something false. Now here's where this understanding becomes intensely practical and reveals the hidden mechanism behind why your life looks the way it does right now. Every single day, probably dozens of times without even noticing, you make declarations using the words, I am. You wake up and say, I am tired. You look at your bank account and think, I am broke. You feel pain and declare, I am sick. Someone criticizes you and you believe, I am not enough. These seem like innocent observations, simple descriptions of your current circumstances. But something far more powerful is happening behind the scenes of these casual statements. When you say, I am, followed by any condition, you're not just describing reality. You're actually claiming that condition as your identity. You're taking the infinite presence that you truly are and binding it to temporary, limited circumstances. Think about the impact of this. The I am in you is divine consciousness itself, the same creative power that spoke worlds into existence. And you're using that power to declare, I am afraid, I am failing, I am stuck. You're essentially saying that the infinite, eternal, all-powerful presence that is your true nature is now identified with lack, limitation, and fear. Can you see how this perpetuates the very experiences you're trying to escape? This is the mindset trap that keeps people circling the same problems year after year. They don't realize that their words aren't passive descriptions, but active declarations of identity. Every time you attach I am to a negative condition, you're reinforcing that condition in your experience. You're giving it the power of divine creative force. You're claiming it as what you are rather than what is simply appearing in your temporary experience. The transformation that's possible when you understand this is immediate and profound, not because you're creating something new, but because you're stopping the process of claiming limitation as your truth. Now I want to go even deeper into this topic by showing you exactly how Jesus modeled a completely different way of using these powerful words, and what happens when you begin to align your declarations with eternal truth rather than temporary appearances. If this is clicking for you and you're starting to see the hidden truth in your own speech patterns, share in the comments. I see how my words create my reality. Jesus demonstrated something revolutionary that most people completely miss when they read Scripture. Go through every recorded statement he made, and you'll notice an extraordinary pattern. He never once said, "I am sick," "I am lacking," I'm afraid," or "I am unworthy." Not even once. Every single time he used those two powerful words, he claimed only what was eternally true about his nature. I am the resurrection and the life. I am the light of the world. I am the way, the truth, and the life. These weren't poetic expressions or religious metaphors. They were precise declarations of identity, aligned with the unchanging reality of divine consciousness. He was showing us the exact mechanism behind spiritual power, using I am only to identify with truth, never to reinforce the temporary appearances of limitation. This is where most spiritual teaching goes off track. We think Jesus was special, unique, the only one who could make such claims. But what if he was actually modeling a principle available to everyone? What if he was demonstrating how to use identity declarations correctly? The impact of understanding this completely changes your approach to every challenge. Instead of saying, "I am sick and need healing," you recognize that the I am cannot be sick because it's infinite spirit. The body may show symptoms, but those symptoms don't belong to your true identity. When you stop claiming illness as what you are, healing becomes natural rather than a desperate struggle for something outside yourself. Here's the hidden truth that transforms everything. You don't need to work toward becoming the I am. You don't need years of meditation, spiritual practices, or religious achievement to finally reach some elevated state where you're worthy of divine identity. The entire journey we've been taught, this long, arduous path of becoming spiritual enough, pure enough, enlightened enough, is based on a fundamental misconception. You're not trying to become something you aren't. You're simply recognizing what you've always been beneath the layers of false identification. The divine presence isn't a destination you're traveling toward. It's the foundation you're standing on right now while you're searching for it somewhere else. Think about the freedom in this revelation. Every spiritual practice you've struggled with, every failure to reach some imagined state of worthiness, every moment of feeling not good enough, all of it falls away when you understand that you already are what you've been seeking. Your spiritual journey isn't about transformation in the sense of becoming something different. It's about uncovering what was hidden, remembering what you forgot, recognizing what was always true. The I am that you are exists in its complete fullness right now. Not 10 years from now after you've perfected yourself, not after you've meditated enough or prayed enough or studied enough. Right now, in this moment, exactly as you are, the infinite presence is your actual identity. This mindset shift changes everything about how you approach your daily experience. You stop waiting to become spiritual and start living from the recognition that you already are the presence you've been seeking. You stop trying to develop or create the I am, and simply stop identifying with what you are not. The fears, the limitations, the false beliefs about yourself that you've carried like they were your true nature. Behind the scenes of every problem, every struggle, every sense of inadequacy is this single error, mistaking temporary conditions for eternal identity. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by showing you the practical application of this understanding and how it dissolves problems without struggle or effort when you rest in this recognition. If you're starting to feel the truth of this, that you're not becoming something but uncovering what already is, type in the comments, "I am already whole." The practical application of this understanding reveals something extraordinary about healing that completely contradicts everything we've been taught. When you're facing illness, the automatic response is to say, "I am sick and I need healing." It feels honest, realistic, like you're just acknowledging the facts. But here's the hidden mechanism at work. The moment those words leave your lips, you've made a declaration about your identity that locks the condition in place. You've claimed that the infinite presence expressing as you, The I am, that is divine consciousness itself, is now sick. Can you see the contradiction? How can infinite spirit be sick? How can the eternal presence that creates and sustains all life be diseased? It can't. The body may be showing symptoms, absolutely, but those symptoms are not happening to the real you. They're appearing in your experience because you've identified with them, claimed them as what you are. This isn't about denying that symptoms exist or pretending everything is fine when it clearly isn't. It's about making a crucial distinction between what you're experiencing and what you are. The body is showing symptoms. That's a fact in the physical realm. But the I that you are, the consciousness that's aware of those symptoms, is untouched, unchanged, whole. When you rest in this knowing, when you refuse to claim illness as your identity, something remarkable happens. Healing occurs naturally, not through struggle or effort, but through recognition of truth. The same principle applies to every area of your life. Not I am broke and need money, but recognizing that the I am is infinite abundance expressing. Not I am alone and need love, but knowing that the I am is love itself. Let me share a powerful story that demonstrates exactly how this works in real life. Margaret had suffered with chronic pain for 7 years. She'd tried everything: doctors, specialists, alternative treatments, countless prayers. Nothing worked. The medical professionals couldn't find a cause, and no treatment brought relief. Her entire life had become defined by this pain. She'd stopped making plans, stopped dreaming, stopped living in any meaningful sense. The pain wasn't just a symptom anymore. It had become her identity. When she finally met Smith Wigglesworth, desperate for any kind of breakthrough, he didn't do what she expected. He didn't pray over her. He didn't perform some healing ritual. He didn't even address the pain directly. Instead, he asked her one simple question that would change everything. Who is the I that says I am in pain? Margaret was confused at first. What kind of question was that? Of course she was in pain. She'd been living with it for 7 years. But Smith pressed deeper with another question. Can infinite spirit hurt? Can God suffer? And then he asked her to sit in silence and really contemplate these questions. For nearly 20 minutes she sat there, and something began to shift in her consciousness. Behind the scenes of her thinking, a revelation was emerging. She'd been identifying her true self, the I am, with a body and its sensations. The pain didn't belong to the eternal presence that she actually was. It belonged to a false sense of identity she'd been carrying. Within 3 weeks of this realization, her pain began to diminish. Within 2 months, it was completely gone. Not because she fought it, not because she received some external intervention, but because she stopped claiming it as her identity. Now I want to go even deeper into this topic by showing you the exact technique Smith Wigglesworth taught for those moments when fear or crisis threatens to overwhelm you, and how this simple practice can interrupt false identity and create space for truth to emerge. If Margaret's journey resonates with something you're experiencing right now, share in the comments. I'm ready to shift my identity. Smith Wigglesworth taught a technique so simple, yet so powerful, that it can completely shift your experience in the middle of a crisis. He called it the pause. Picture this. You're in the middle of overwhelming circumstances. Fear has its grip on you. Your mind is racing with worst-case scenarios. Your body is flooded with anxiety. The situation feels impossible, urgent, desperate. Every instinct is screaming at you to react, to do something, to fix it right now. This is precisely the moment when most people make decisions that only deepen their problems. But what if there was a different way? What if the most powerful thing you could do in that moment of chaos wasn't to act, but to pause? Here's how this works. When fear grips you, when circumstances seem impossible, you deliberately stop everything. You don't react, you don't try to solve the problem through human effort. You don't panic or spiral into worst-case thinking. Instead, you pause, completely, intentionally, fully. And in that pause, you ask yourself one crucial question. What is the truth of my being right now? Not what appears to be true. Not what circumstances are screaming at you, but what is eternally, unchangeably true about the I am that you are? And the answer is always the same, regardless of what's happening in the physical world. The I am is the presence of God, untouched by any condition, whole, supplied, and safe. This simple act interrupts the false identity that's been running the show and creates space for truth to emerge. The impact of this practice is immediate, not because it changes circumstances instantly, but because it changes you, your consciousness, your perspective, your relationship with the problem. Now let me reveal something about supply and abundance that will completely transform how you relate to money, resources, and provision. We've been conditioned to believe that supply comes from external sources. Your job provides your income, your clients give you business, your investments generate returns. This entire mindset creates perpetual fear because what happens when the job ends, when clients leave, when investments fail? If your source is outside you, you're always vulnerable, always one decision away from lack, always dependent on circumstances beyond your control. But here's the hidden truth that changes everything. Your employer is not your source. Your clients are not your source. Your business is not your source. The I am that you are is your source. And that source is infinite, inexhaustible, eternal. Think about the freedom in this revelation. When you recognize that I am is infinite supply itself, you stop living in fear about specific channels closing. Yes, one job may end, but that's just a channel, not the source. 3 other channels you never imagined might open. One stream of income may dry up, but the source, the infinite I am, never diminishes, never runs out, never fails. This understanding doesn't mean you sit passively waiting for money to fall from the sky. It means you operate from a completely different consciousness. You work, you plan, you take action, but not from desperation or fear of lack. You move from the knowing that supply is always flowing because it's what you are, not what you're trying to get. The channels change. The forms shift, but the source remains constant because it's your very identity. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by showing you how to begin living from this consciousness consistently, making it your natural state, rather than something you only remember in crisis moments. If this understanding of impersonal supply is shifting something in your financial mindset, write in the comments, I am my own source. The real transformation happens when this understanding stops being something you do and becomes who you are. Most people treat spiritual principles like tools they pull out when there's a crisis. Pray when you're desperate, meditate when you're stressed, affirm when you're afraid. But living as I am isn't a technique you apply in difficult moments. It's a constant state of being that permeates every aspect of your existence. You wake up in the morning not as a person facing another difficult day, but as infinite consciousness expressing in human form. You walk through your day not trying to be spiritual, but recognizing that spirit is what's walking. You work, you love, you rest, all from this awareness. You're no longer a person attempting to connect with God. Your divine presence appearing as this particular expression. Think of it like a wave in the ocean. The wave has its unique shape, its individual movement, its temporary form. It rises and falls, crashes and dissolves. But if that wave knows itself as the ocean, everything changes. It doesn't fear dissolution because it knows it's the infinite sea expressing momentarily in this form. It doesn't compete with other waves because it recognizes them as itself in different expressions. The wave doesn't lose its waveness by knowing it's the ocean. It actually experiences its wave existence more fully, more freely, because it's no longer limited by the belief that this temporary form is all it is. That's exactly what living as I am looks like. You still have your personality, your preferences, your unique expression, but underneath all of it, you know what you are. Smith Wigglesworth embodied this consciousness so completely that people felt something shift when he entered a room. It wasn't about charisma or personality. It was presence. The I am recognized itself through him so clearly that it awakened recognition in others. Problems would often dissolve in his presence without him speaking a word about them because consciousness itself was doing the work, not human effort or manipulation. This is the destination of your spiritual journey, not becoming someone special or achieving some elevated state, but simply living from the truth of what you've always been. Here's the practical path forward, and it starts right now with whatever you're facing in this moment. You don't need to wait until you understand this perfectly or until you've practiced enough to get it right. Whatever challenge is pressing on you today, health concerns, financial pressure, relationship struggles, fear about the future, pause right now. Stop trying to solve it through human effort and planning. Stop seeing yourself as a limited person facing an overwhelming problem. Return to the simple truth. I am is the only presence and power operating in your life. The I am is whole, regardless of symptoms. The I am is supplied, regardless of circumstances. The I am is safe, regardless of appearances. Not because conditions prove this, but because this is the eternal nature of being expressing as your experience. As this recognition becomes your foundation rather than an occasional practice, watch what happens. Problems that seemed immovable begin to dissolve. Not overnight necessarily, not through magic, but steadily, consistently, powerfully. The shift happens first in consciousness, and then your external experience begins to mirror that inner transformation. You stop living from reaction and start living from recognition. Behind the scenes of your daily decisions, a different intelligence is operating. Not your limited human thinking, but the infinite wisdom of the I am itself. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by addressing the challenges you'll face on this journey and how to navigate the moments when everything seems to contradict what you know to be true. If you're ready to make this your constant state of being rather than an occasional practice, share in the comments, I choose to live as I am. You know, if you've made it this far in our conversation today, something significant has happened. You're not just casually consuming content. You're genuinely seeking transformation. You're ready for this shift in consciousness. And that tells me you're exactly the kind of person I create these videos for. People who aren't satisfied with surface-level spirituality, who want the real mechanics behind how consciousness works, who are willing to question everything they've been taught in pursuit of truth. If this message resonated somewhere deep in your soul, if you felt that recognition of something you've always known but couldn't quite articulate, do me a favor and leave a comment saying, "This message was meant for me." I read every single comment, and it genuinely helps me understand who's walking this path with me. Your words matter, and they create a ripple effect for others who find this content and read through the community we're building together. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. I'm here consistently sharing these deeper spiritual principles. Not the kind you hear everywhere else, but the revolutionary insights that actually transform how you experience reality. This isn't about accumulating knowledge. It's about practical wisdom you can apply immediately to shift your consciousness and consequently, your entire life experience. A simple like on the video helps more people discover these teachings too. YouTube shows this content to others who are searching for exactly what we've explored today, and your engagement makes that possible. It's a small gesture that extends this understanding to someone who might desperately need to hear it right now. There's a video right here that takes this understanding even further, exploring the specific practices that anchor this consciousness in your daily experience. It's the perfect continuation of what we've uncovered today. Click and join me there. Let's keep this journey going together.